Not all premacular hemorrhages are caused by Valsalva. It was a busy Monday OPD when a 70-year-old gentleman walked in with sudden episode of diminution of vision in the right eye since last 3 days. There was no history of heavy weightlifting, sneezing, vomiting, trauma or any systemic comorbidity. At presentation, his best corrected visual acuity in right eye was 3/60 N60 and left eye examination was unremarkable. On dilated fundus examination, there was presence of a well-circumscribed discrete area of hemorrhage over the fovea obscuring the underlying blood vessels, suggestive of premacular hemorrhage, along with a well-loculated, tense, shiny membrane over it, suggestive of a sub-ILM component. Based on these findings, most likely the probable diagnosis would be subhyaloid hemorrhage secondary to Valsalva. However, if we look carefully, there is a yellowish-white spot at its inferotemporal edge. Additionally, there were arteriovenous crossing changes in both eyes, suggestive of grade 2 hypertensive retinopathy changes. Based on this yellowish-white spot and AV crossing changes within the first 3 bifurcations of retinal artery, a high suspicion of retinal arterial macroaneurysm was made. Immediately blood pressure was checked, which was noted to be 200 by 120 millimeters of mercury. So, a probable diagnosis of retinal arterial macroaneurysm was made and patient was urgently referred to physician for blood pressure control and systemic evaluation. In view of high blood pressure, fundus fluorescein angiography was deferred. He was managed conservatively and asked to follow up after blood pressure control and physician's fitness for surgery. On 1 week follow-up, there was no reduction in size of the hemorrhage at fovea and findings were same as before, so decision to proceed with surgery was made and the patient was advised a 23 gauge 3-port pars plana vitrectomy. In cases like these, first the posterior hyaloid has to be released from the underlying retina. Thus, a preservative-free triamcinolone assisted posterior vitreous detachment is done. Here, as you can see, with the help of the cutter, once we find the edge of the posterior vitreous, with a constant vacuum, we are trying to release it from the underlying retina, making sure there are no evident breaks due to extensive pull. The wave of PVD is progressing anteriorly with appearance of the Weiss ring, which indicates the successful induction of PVD. Once PVD is induced, vitrectomy is done to the maximum extent possible. The residual triamcinolone is removed with passive extrusion. We can now see the blood clot over the fovea with a shiny membrane over it indicative of sub-ILM hemorrhage. Now there are 2 ways to remove it. One is by staining the ILM with brilliant blue dye and peeling the ILM with ILM peeling forceps. Here, we are using an extended silicone tip cannula over the macula and trying to engage one end of the ILM. Once the tip gets occluded, the tense ILM breaks and a nice flap is raised. We then use the ILM peeling forceps to peel the ILM around the macular area and the underlying blood is removed. If the ILM over the macula is well peeled, there is no residual traction and no sub-ILM hemorrhage. With the help of back flush or soft tip cannula, we can remove the rest of the hemorrhage. Now, if you can trace the central retinal artery, you can nicely see the saccular dilatation of the arteriole, confirming our suspicion of retinal arterial macroaneurysm. Photocoagulation was then done around the macroaneurysm with green laser to prevent postoperative leakage and other complications. A single row of laser burns was applied circumferentially along the edge of the aneurysm. There were no evident peripheral breaks, which were checked at the end of the surgery. Now fluid air exchange is done and the cavity is filled with air. The ports were subsequently removed. At postoperative 1 week follow-up, the patient improved drastically with a visual acuity of 6/9 and N6, and the gentleman was extremely happy and delighted. And as you can see, the macula was absolutely normal with a good uptake of laser burns. This is the postoperative NFAS OCT image of the suspected area, showing a saccular outpouching of the arteriole, suggestive of retinal arterial macroaneurysm secondary to uncontrolled hypertension. So these are good prognostic cases and a careful history and examination are imperative to arrive at the correct diagnosis. These are the preoperative and postoperative fundus photographs of the patient. So a simple fundus examination can be life-saving for the patient and gives a clue to the underlying pathology, and timely intervention can improve the vision and quality of life drastically. Retinal arterial macroaneurysms are acquired focal dilatations of retinal arterial branches within the first three bifurcations from the optic nerve, mostly second order retinal arterioles. They are classified as hemorrhagic or exudative. They are common in patients above 60 years of age, are mostly unilateral, more commonly seen in women, and are associated with hypertension and dyslipidemia. The non-surgical approach of Nd:YAG laser hyaloidotomy was deferred due to proximity of the suspicious aneurysm to fovea and to avoid the risk of foveal damage. So the take-home message is, any premacular hemorrhage should not be overlooked and thorough examination is a must. Dilated fundus examination can be life-saving for the patient as it gives a clue to the underlying pathology. Hence, not all premacular hemorrhages are caused by Valsalva. Thank you.